Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Bismillah wa salatu wa salamu ala rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'een, amma ba'd. There are two things I wanted to do today and separate the two from each other. There's also an Imam's program happening today, so instead of challenging you to not fall asleep for an hour, I'm going to challenge you to not fall asleep for maybe 20-25 minutes today, inshallah. But what I want to do is there are some observations about the parable of the spider that were outstanding. So I'll try to cover some of them first, and if we get time, then we'll move to the next parable, inshallah, which belongs to Surah Al-Rum. So let's begin with some of the things that I think are also important to note about the house of the spider, and the weakest of homes is the house of the spider that Allah was talking about yesterday. You'll notice that Allah is using the smallest creature, this really puny creature, and then He's using that to make comments about sometimes even the greatest empires, right? So even kingdoms and large empires would have a king, and to hold on to his power, he starts suspecting his brother, and he starts suspecting his other family members, and then gets them killed to hold on to his power. And what does the spider do to maintain? Because the spider was only created to be a trap. In fact, it even becomes a trap for those who live within the kingdom, right? So it eats them alive, right? So what that tells us is you've got the smallest creature with the least amount of physical power, and then you've got the greatest example of power, and it applies to both, which means it applies to everything in between also. So it's not just about a spider and about kings and awliya and leaders and politicians and billionaires, etc., etc. You can become a spider in an office. You could be a spider inside of a family. You could be a spider inside of just a group of friends, a social circle. You could be a spider inside of a masjid community, etc. And construct a home and have that kind of power struggle and have that kind of predatorial mentality. So all the things that we learned about, they have this universal kind of application. And that's why this example is so powerful, because awliya come in all different shapes and sizes. They're not just on one size. Just like the idols of the ancients, some idols were gigantic, some idols were pocket size, mini action figure size idols, right? You have all size of, that's why you have all kinds of awliya, all kinds of false patrons and people that, make these connections. The next observation, which I think is critical, is that the spider, the connections that it makes are very weak with each other, which is a really interesting thing, because the awliya, if you think of, for example, Walid ibn Mughira, I'll give you one example, Walid ibn Mughira, right? He's one of the awliya of the poor in Makkah, and he's one of the patrons of the pagan religion, right, behind it. So, in the case of Walid, he's thinking about Islam. I talked to you about this in Epic before, but he's thinking about Islam, he's considering it. But he also thinks if he accepts Islam, he's going to lose business partners. He's going to lose some of the people that were following him before. He's going to get some of the other people that are not at his level. He's at 100%, some of them are at 70%. When they see that he's accepting Islam, they're going to see an opportunity to move on him, make a move, right? Because people that are almost at the top are always looking to make upwards mobility moves, right? So even though they are in the same circle, so they go to each other's homes for dinner, their wives know each other, their sons know each other, they hang out in the same places, they eat the same kind of food, they also hate each other. They also don't, they're ties together, they need each other, but they also don't like each other, right? So you have politicians that are shaking hands, that are going to the same banquet dinner, right? That are taking pictures together, giving press releases together, but they actually also hate each other. They're very careful around each other, right? You could also have, and it's dangerous to say this, you could also have shaykhs that love each other on the picture. They're speaking together at the same convention, right? They're giving lectures together, but behind they can't stand each other. Oof, oof. But for the picture, let's take the shahada finger out, they're hoping for a different finger, but it's the shahada finger out. Yeah. Too much. It's Ramadan. But then the thing is, what Allah is saying is, the ties of the web of a spider are very weak connections. That's what makes it frail. So Allah is saying actually these connect, when believers have a tie to each other, al-mu'minuna wal-mu'minat ba'duhum awliya'u ba'd. We are tied to one another. The muhajirun are tied to the ansar, for example. We are awliya to each other. And you know what? There are no strings attached. I'm your brother because I'm your brother, because Allah put our hearts together. It's not because I'm going to get something out of you. It's not because there's a give and take. Like, what am I going to get out of being your friend? What am I going to get out of putting you in my home and feeding you and taking care of you? What's the long-term gain here, right? It's not a trade-off. With the awliya of the kuffar, there's always a trade-off. In fact, even in their religion, they only go to their gods if they're going to get something in a trade, which then translates to every one of their relationships. Every one of their relationships is a kind of trade, which makes it weak, because the moment you're not able to offer me something, I'm no longer your wali. The moment you stop being of benefit to me, what do I need you for? You're not my brother anymore. You were my brother in some other case. Now, you could say this is a problem of the kuffar. But when you don't understand what it means to be, have Allah as your wali, and under that, the believers should be awliya to each other, then sometimes even Muslims can be only friends to each other, brothers to each other, sisters to each other, when there is an advantage attached. You might even find in some families, people love you. You're the favorite cousin because you in America. But they're like, mashallah, you're so good, I love you. When are you coming? When are you going to visit? Because you visit with a full suitcase, right? Because you you get a toy, you get a 99-cent toy, you get a fake Levi's jeans, you get, So you get product shipped from China to America, then you buy it from the American store, and then you take it back to Pakistan, and then you pass it out, the Chinese product, which they live next door, right? I don't know, I'm in one of those moods today. Anyway, but the point is, they start seeing you as, oh, well, they're gonna hook us up. This is what they're good for, And so just be really nice to these cousins. Dress your best around them, cook your best around them. Oh, let's go to the park. Oh, let's take you to the beach. Oh, let's go on a road trip. You're like, my cousins are the best. They're the best, my God. And then, somehow you lose your immigration. And you lose the job, and the business goes bankrupt, and you move back to Pakistan. And you move back to Dhaka. And no citizenship, no passport, no nothing. You're back to... all of a sudden you realize you're not the favorite cousin no more. Nobody's calling you to go for a walk and let's go get some kebabs and nothing, all gone. Why? Because all of those associations were what? Transactional. They're just transactional relationships, right? And so it's actually a commentary on the nature of transactional relationships. With believers, أَشِدَّاءُ عَلَى الْكُفَّارِ رُحَمَاءُ بَيْنَهُمْ أَلَّفَ بَيْنَ قُلُوبِكُمْ فَأَصْبَحْتُمْ بِنِعْمَتِهِ إِخْوَانًا. It's a different kind of language. You are with this person through thick and thin. Through thick and thin. And even though this is not the direct subject today, I will say that unfortunately a lot of our relationships in the Muslim space, within our families, within our communities, within our circles, a lot of those relationships resemble a lot more the spider's web connections than they do what the believers' connections are to each other. They are highly transactional relationships. They are highly cautious relationships, And I would have said that in theory, but I've tasted it. So أَعْلَمُ بِهَا مَنْ ذَقَّ بِهَا مَنْ غَصَّ بِهَا, right? The one who's tasted, choked on it, knows it really well. So I know. I know. And then you find then there are people who are sincere brothers, sincere sisters, sincere family. They don't see you for the value you bring to them. They see you without any of your outside add-ons. They just see you. And you're valuable to them. Not your car, not your money, not your fame, not your status, not your citizenship, not your degree, not your house, not your, your association with, it's none of that. It's just you. You're valuable, right? And this is actually the commentary Allah is making on the nature of their relationships. They're not even close to each other. Then, so like I say, this is a commentary on all layers of leadership. But the other thing is, the language of the ayah, مَثَلُ الَّذِينَ اتَّخَذُوا مِن دُونِ اللَّهِ أَوْلِيَاءَ, the example of those who took awliya besides Allah, as opposed to Allah, right? So either you have Allah as your wali, in that case, how many wali do you actually have? Just one. But if you don't have Allah as a wali, you would think, well, I don't want Allah as a wali, I'll pick one other as a wali, someone else as a wali. But Allah describes really beautifully and very accurately that if you don't have Allah as a wali, then your mind can only go to not having one alternative wali, but you have to have multiple. You have to have awliya. Why? Because for this need, I need this wali. For that need, I need that wali. For this problem, I need this one. And for that problem, I need that one. Multiple transactions, multiple awliya. And with Allah, all of your needs, everything is being covered by one wali, right? So if you lose Allah as your wali, you're never going to run out of a list of awliya that you need. You're always going to be going from one to another, to another, to another, to another, to another. And which means, and every time you go to a wali, because Allah is not asking for anything from you. Allah says, مَا أُرِيدُ مِنْهُم مِّن رِزْقٍ وَمَا أُرِيدُ أَن يُطْعِمُونَ. I don't want anything. I don't want them to provide me. I don't want any rizq from them. I don't want them to feed me. That's Allah. But every other wali that you go to, you want something from them, but in the end, that wali also wants something from you. But if you now have multiple awliya, and this one wants something from you, and this one wants something from you, and this one wants something from you, you're going to end up becoming, those awliya are going to start competing over you. Or you're going to make two of them happy, one of them upset. And you're going to, like many of you know, if you have too many bosses or too many managers, the kind of mental breakdown you have to go through, right? Or sometimes when parents of children are on two different pages, right? And the father says, sit over here. The mother says, go over there. And the kid's like, I'm not an amoeba. I can't split. And, right? So he just sits over here when mother's looking. Mother turns around, he goes over there, then comes back and he develops, it's psychotic. You won't know. You'll always end up trying to please someone and trying to fulfill the transaction with someone. And the thing with Allah Azza wa Jal that's so beautiful is that Allah did not put a high price or a high standard for what it means to please Him. Make tawbah to Him, He's pleased with you. Make istighfar to Him, He's pleased with you. Obey Him, He's pleased with you. Make a mistake, ask for forgiveness, He's pleased with you. He did not, people make it sound like Allah will never be happy with you. Or Allah will never forgive you. Or Allah is always angry. Or Allah is very hard to please. Or Allah, especially, I know my people, South Asians, right? By extension, not just Pakistanis, Afghanis, Indians, Bangladeshis, Sri Lankans. The entire South Asia, we have this Islamic psychological disorders, un-Islamic, Islamic psychological disorders. And one of them is that we have this paranoia that Allah will not accept our deeds. We live with that paranoia. मैंने नमाज़ें तो पढ़ी हैं पता नहीं अल्लाह कबूल करेगा कि नहीं करेगा बस दुआ करें कि बस कबूल हो जाए. I pray, I hope Allah accepts it. I don't think He will, but I hope so, because it's probably not good. I just came from Hajj. I hope Allah accepts it. I don't think it was accepted. Why can't you have husnul dhan with Allah? Why are you always in this anxiety that nothing you do is ever good enough? You know why? Because people in your life, your mom, your older sister, your brother, your uncle, everybody told you nothing you do is good enough. You got a 99 on your test, your dad said, I was getting 100 before I took the exam. Right? They'll always tell you you're not good enough, you're not good enough, you're not good enough. And then you take that and you put it on Allah. Allah is always going to see me as not good enough, because in my entire society, everyone tells me I'm not a good enough son, I'm not a good enough husband, I'm not a good enough wife, I'm not a good enough daughter, I'm not a good enough sister, I'm not a good enough brother, I'm not a good enough, okay, I'm not a good enough Muslim. And what's even more fun in our societies is we put that on Allah. If you make your mother angry in that region, it's not your mother that's angry, it's Allah. Allah kabhi maaf nahi karega tumhe. Allah will never, what, lady, you get emails from God? You just bring Allah into it and just slap this poor kid and say, Allah will be very angry if you eat this cookie. I can guarantee you the child can eat the cookie and Allah will not be angry. Right? But we invoke Allah in this way. Right? And we become sort of the intermediaries between Allah and the poor child. We set up these false kinds of psychological awliya also. It's scary, but it's true. Last observation about this. Or two more observations. I told you something about the spider. It makes its web, but it spends the least amount of energy physically moving. It just sets the trap, creates the infrastructure, and then it just waits for the flies to fall into its trap. What is happening? Oh, it's slowly, okay. There's not going to be a PowerPoint presentation about a spider. I just hope it doesn't fall on my head. But anyway, so, wait, hold on, let it finish. I'm going to let it finish because I see your faces. And this has happened twice in this lecture today. This will never be interesting to you in your life unless you're in a lecture. You know it. If you were in any conversation and you say, hold on a second, the screen is coming down, you wouldn't do it. But if there's a khutbah or a lecture going on, all of a sudden, I see all your faces. Oh, how low can it go? So I'm going to let you get your fill, and then I'll continue. Anyway, what was I saying? Something about Islam. Spider, thank you. Okay. Yes, so they set up, they spend a little bit of energy, but they make this investment into using this expensive material, silk being the expensive material, right? And they build this trap, and then they let the flies just come in and get into their trap one by one, right? Isn't it that they set up a kind of business, and their victim, which is their customer, keeps walking into their trap, and they don't have to rebuild the web each time. Once they set it up, people just keep falling into it. Now look at the fly. Does it sit back and the food comes to it, or it has to go and get food? The bird has to go and get food. Every other creature has to go and get food. But the spider is just sitting back, and it's just eating everybody else without doing any work. Right? They're doing the work for it. It's just waiting on the naivete of the fly, or the stupidity of the fly, to just feed off of it. That's all. One aspect of the awliya is they create structures in society. They create machines in society, mechanisms in society, where they can just sit back, and the people are getting the blood sucked out of them, and they don't even know it. They're making them rich. The mushrikun set up the idols, set up the entire shirk, Disney World in Mecca, and now they sit back, and people come from all these tribes, and they're going to buy food there, and they're going to do tawaf and pay some homage there. They're going to sacrifice an animal there. They're going to stay somewhere. They're going to need a place for lodging. And all that business, who's making the milk? Who's making the cash? The awliya sitting back. They just set the trap, and now you just let these people come and like flies and eat off of them. What is the modern, banking industry? What is the modern taxation structures in many states? Like Australia and England were interesting cases for me, and the other places too. Like actually, France was insane. In France, I was in Lyon in France, and I made the mistake of renting a car. And we don't appreciate that in Texas. You could park outside wherever. You can park on the dirt. In Lyon, you park on the street, it's 85 euros, which is $100 a night. 85 a night on the street. That's the cheap one. If you go into a parking lot, that's more expensive. And if you don't, it gets towed right away. They charge by the 15 minutes. The meters by the 15 minutes. You've got in England now, there are zones where it depends on how much emission your car gives. They charge you more for being on that road at that time, and there's just driving, the spider is sucking the blood out of you just while you don't even know you're on the road. The closest we get to that is the George Bush Turnpike, right? The spider's sucking the blood out of your toll tag. You're just, what do they do? They create these machines by which people are being robbed, and they're being robbed in a subtle way, little by little. Not enough that they'll realize it immediately, right? Like the slow boil of the frog. Little by little. This is actually, another phrase for this in the Quran is al-tatfif, al-mutaffifin. Mutaffif is the one who gives the customer less than what they deserve, only by a little bit. Right? You were going to give £1, you gave 0.95 pounds. You only squared away 0.05 for yourself, but after 2,000 customers, after 5,000 customers, you made quite a bit of savings, right? So just pull a little bit from here, a little bit from here, a little bit from here. Not enough for you people to realize that they're being taken advantage of. And so that's part of the machinery. And of course the lending industry, the banking industry, the credit card industry. My favorite, the predatory university industry in America. Universities in this country are not educational institutions. Most of them are investment firms. They're hedge funds. And college students, these masakin, they go there to get an education, and they go and they're like, oh, I want to go to Harvard, I want to go to an elite school, I want to go to an Ivy League school. Okay, go to an Ivy League school. What are you going to pay for your 4-year degree? A couple of $100,000? Okay, what are you going to study? Accounting? That doesn't look like good accounting. How are you going to pay that off after you call? How are you going to pay for it? Well, I have to get a CPA before I get a real job. Well, then you're going to pay more money? Yeah, I'm going to pay more money. And then after that, what are you going to do? Well, then I'm going to be in debt. Then I'm going to hope that I'm going to petition to the governor to give us some relief as students, because we're almost like, see the trap that was set for you? You're already buried in debt before you even started your career. You're already neck deep. How are you going to get married? Oh, you want to get married? Oh, just take a loan. You want to get a car? Easy, take a loan. These spider traps, if you go to college, you have these credit card companies with free candy, right? Come here, fly, come here. Just sign up, right? One after the other. All of these are all the traps that are set in our society. And finally, the last observation I want to share with you. I didn't even get to today's parable, that's okay. We'll do it tomorrow, inshallah, no problem. The last observation I want to make with you is the spider's web, I told you, is almost 10 to 100 times thinner than one human hair, the strand of the web. So it's almost invisible. It's almost invisible. And it's designed that way because though the creatures that are not paying close attention, and the creatures that we're talking about, for example, the fly, right? The fly has like 360-degree cameras. It has multiple eyes. And you know how quick the reflexes of a fly are. You try to catch a fly or hit a fly, you better be Master Miyagi, because you're not getting anywhere, right? You're not going to be able to get to it. But it's so fine because those flies are they're trained to capture bigger objects, bigger threats, and they don't see the fine thread of the spider web as a big threat. Right? They don't realize how sharp it is. They don't realize how entangling it is. I could go through it, it's fine. Even if they see it, they don't see much of it. Right? So they get caught in it. But, and this might be a commentary on how the awliya, the human awliya, not just the idol awliya, the human awliya that are behind the idol awliya, they set up machineries that are not visible to the naked eye. They're subtle. They're subtle and behind the scenes. The trap is very, very delicate. But with just a little bit of focus, if you didn't see, if there was a spider web in that corner, I wouldn't see it from here. But if I went a little closer and I just kind of took a look for a second, would I see it? I would. All it requires is a little bit of light and a little bit of focus, isn't it? And once you cast light on it, it becomes visible. And so, what is Allah doing by way of these examples? He's casting light on things that will otherwise be invisible to us. That's what Allah Azza wa Jalla is doing. And it's as if we don't become aware of this, then we might live through life getting trapped in multiple spider webs from multiple of these anakib of different kinds in our society, and we won't even know it. We won't even realize it. And so, having said all of that, it gives a new flavor to what Allah says at the end, right? تِلْكَ الْأَمْثَالُ نَضْرِبُهَا لِلنَّاسِ وَمَا يَعْقِلُهَا إِلَّا الْعَالِمُونَ. That these are examples we give, these examples are the ones we strike for people, and nobody understands them except people who truly know. Now, I did want to do the new parable today, but we're out of time. But I will introduce one piece of that new parable because it's connected to this parable. The next parable we're going to study belongs to Surah Ar-Rum. It's not a very long surah. I'm going to give you the assignment to find it yourself, inshallah, what parable that is. But it's going to be a parable about power. Power and vulnerability and greed. Three components: power, vulnerability, and greed. And Allah is going to describe how powerful people live in fear. They live in fear. Their fear of being vulnerable, right? And they have this greed, meaning they want to amass more and more wealth, and they have this hirs for power. They want to hold on to their power. But both of these desires, they make them really scared that somebody will come and take it away from them, right? And they become paranoid about losing even a little bit of their power, right? So they want to hold on to it in any possible way that they can. It's interesting that this parable is mentioned in Surah Ar-Rum, at the beginning of which is the mention of the Roman Empire. And the Roman Empire was one of the greatest collections of power in one institution in the history of the entire world. Power got gathered in a center of Rome, the Roman Empire, like almost never before. Probably the only rival or something that went past the Roman Empire is the British Empire in history. But the Roman Empire is like a kind of a gold standard of worldwide global domination empire, right? And they had many, many internal problems. Assassinations and generals that were supposed to be loyal to the king, but the general starts becoming a hero, and that general starts having an army of his own, a sub-army under him, another general, their own sub-army under them. And then one day the general decides he's going to assassinate the king and take over. Or the kings the Roman emperors used to have a senate. The Caesar used to have a senate. And the senate used to be kind of like this shura council thing, right? So it's kind of like the president and the House of Commons, or you have the House of Representatives or the Senate, things like that. These are children of that original structure, right? But eventually the king was like, this Senate business is problematic because one senator hates the other senator, or these two senators want to see me gone, or these three senators are working against those two senators. This is too much. You know what? Kill all the senators. I'm just going to run this myself. So why? Because at one point the emperor became afraid of the senators. And the senators all, even when they have their meetings, they're very careful because they're afraid of the emperor. So even though from the public's perspective, these are all people in a position of power, of wealth. They live in the most expensive homes. They live in the palaces. They live in the echelons of power. And inside each one of them is a terrifying fear of each other. Because actually, each one of them is a spider. And each one of them, given the opportunity, would eat the other. Would just eat up the other, subhanAllah. So we're actually going to go from this parable of the hyper-individual predatory spider, and that being describing the false awliya, to now a parable about power itself. And how that was used in the mind of the mushrik to actually even have false assumptions about Allah. We'll talk about that tomorrow, inshallah ta'ala. Barakallahu li wa lakum fil Qur'an al-Hakim, wa nafa'ani wa iyyakum bil ayati wa dhikr al-Hakim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Right on time.